Hey everyone, so it is Tuesday, March 21st. I'm going to be filling out my survey for the 1D&D playtest, the most recent one, with the Druid and Paladin. So I figured I'd do a video, though I am going to probably edit it a bit to take out all the more boring bits. So let's get started on it. Which sections of the Unearthed Arcana are you interested in providing feedback for? If you do not want to fill out the entire survey, you don't have to. Of course I will. All right. How satisfied were you overall with the Druid class? I have to say dissatisfied because it is built around Wild Shape, and the Wild Shape feature just wasn't done very well. So I like the idea of templates. The templates they presented, I was not a fan of. They should be customizable. Defensively, there just isn't enough there. There was some clunky wording, so it needs some work. Okay, so here were my responses for the Druid, so you can see on your screen where I was satisfied and dissatisfied, and this is what I said. And I used 192 out of 200 words, so I kind of ended it abruptly, but I am not satisfied with this Druid, but I like some of the ideas. I like the idea of templates for Wild Shape, but they should be customizable. And these ones are way too weak defensively. Your AC goes down, you lose the ability to cast spells, and there are 0 defensive boosts to compensate. I'm not sure what the point is of adding a tiny form at 11th level. I like the idea of channel nature. I like the idea of class level based scaling. I would like a druid themed option for use other than Wild Shape. Healing is okay, but it's not unique to druids. If you keep healing blossoms, it needs to scale better with level, and if at 15th level you just do both healing blossoms and Wild Shape, then you're removing the options of channel nature. Ideally, I would like Wild Shape, Healing Blossoms, and more options for this feature, and I mean beyond the familiar, right? And of course, most of the features on this Druid are the scaling of Wild Shape, which really pushes the Wild Shape archetype. I would like Wild Shape as a choice, but not as the only theme for my Druid. And I said very quickly, Armor Prof is good, Epic Boon is good. I like both those things. So for the Moon Druid, overall I was satisfied. Again, you can see my scores on the screen. And I said, I am satisfied with the Moon Druid, assuming that Wild Shape itself is improved. Because Wild Shape is a problem, and if Wild Shape remains as is, then the Moon Druid's no good. But it's not because of the Moon Druid subclass. It's because of Wild Shape itself. So if they improve Wild Shape, then the Moon Druid improves with it. Now, I do think that allowing Abjuration spells in Wild Shape pushes the Moon Druid to multiclass, which I'm not a big fan of, though I like the idea of Moon Druids being able to expand spell slots to get benefits. I should probably say while in Wild Shape, so I'll add that in. And then I said I really like Elemental Wild Shape, and the reason I like it is because with the current Moon Druid, what happens is from levels 1 through 9, or levels 2 through 9, you're turning into animals, and then at level 10, you never turn into animals anymore. You're just turning into elementals. Here, what they've done is they've had an aspect of being an elemental being added to your current Wild Shapes. So you're kind of evolving rather than just, you turn a page and everything you used to do is gone. So I like that idea in theme, and mechanically I thought it worked all right. Now, what I had a problem with was the 14th level feature. So I said, what I don't understand is why the 14th level feature is unchanged. Thousand Forms has always been a really weird fit on the Moon Druid, and I was looking forward to it being replaced with something that fits the subclass better. But instead, they gave us the exact same thing. Okay, and on to the Paladin. Again, you can see my scores on the screen. But these were my comments, and I used just about all the space I had for them. I like a lot of the changes to the Paladin, but overall I think you've overtuned the class. Aura Protection is an extremely powerful feature, and given all the things that have been improved for Paladins, I think it's time to temper the aura. Another major concern I have with the Paladin class is class identity. With Smite spells and the Fine Steed spell being openly available to clerics at lower levels, these things that used to be part of the Paladin identity are being handed off to clerics to do better. I would like it if these things were Paladin specific, or at least if Paladins were the best class to access these features. Then I said I like the idea of other channel divinity options, and Abjure Foes is a neat idea. I also like the mechanic where even a creature who saves has a minor penalty applied, but it's just way too strong given the massive range that is given. So it's like a 60-foot effect, and given that everything, regardless of whether it saves or not, gets debuffed from that, it's too much. And then I said, I actually like the new Smite rules. I'm okay with the whole restriction on you smite or you cast a spell. That's fine with me. The once per turn thing, I'm fine with that as well. What I'm worried about is that range combat is just going to be better than melee in 1D&D. And this isn't a paladin specific thing. This is just a concern for the system overall. So I added in, I'm hoping the next playtest gives melee something good. Okay, so the Oath of Devotion subclass, you can see my scores on the screen, and here's what I said. This subclass is really powerful, which I am good with, as long as it's universal. The subclasses seen in previous playtests need to be readdressed to match this power level. Then I said, Sacred Weapon using a bonus action, big improvement. Giving Paladin subclass a special smite that fits the subclass is a great idea. Totally on board for that. And then I just finished off saying I would be all for the other subclasses you've already presented. Lore Bard, Hunter Ranger, Thief Rogue, Life Cleric, Moon Druid being rebalanced to roughly match this power level rather than have this subclass be toned down. But obviously some kind of rebalancing needs to take place. Okay, so now we're on to feats. And the first thing it says is comments on the ability score improvement feat as presented in this Unearthed Arcana. So I just want to show you here. So here's the actual article. We have character feats, parts of a feat, prerequisite benefit, whether it's repeatable, bonus feats at 20th level, feat descriptions, and then I've got Epic Boon of Fate, Epic Boon of Spell Recall, and Epic Boon of True Sight, then design note about Epic Boon feats, and then we're on to spells. So, as far as I can see, there is no ability score improvement feat presented in the article. Not sure why this is here. So I just said, there was no ability score improvement feat presented in this article that I could find. Comments on the Epic Boon of Fate feat, as presented in this Unearthed Arcana. Let's just go through those feats before I give you my comments. So the Epic Boon of Fate, you get an ability score increase, and then whenever another creature within 60 feet of you fails a d20 test, you can roll 2d4, and then you can add it to their roll. And then you can use it once per turn, and up to 8 times per long rest. Then Spell Recall, so you get the ability score increase. Then whenever you cast a spell, 1st through 4th level, you roll a d4, and if the die roll equals the level of the spell, then you don't expend the spell slot. And then finally, Epic Boon of True Sight, you get an ability score increase, and you get True Sight 60 feet. So what I said was, with the Epic Boon of Fate, this was my favorite Epic Boon so far, really impactful and appropriate for an Epic Boon. For Epic Boon of Spell Recall, I said I like the idea here, but it's a bit weak compared to Epic Boon of Fate. Maybe it should be if the number you roll equals or exceeds the spell slot level, then it's not expended. And then for Epic Boon of True Sight, I said this is okay, but maybe the True Sight should be 120 feet. Same thing, it is not as good as Epic Boon of Fate. But I do appreciate that they're moving in the right direction as regards to capstones. So when we get to 20th level in a class, you're getting benefits that are greater than other levels. That is the right direction to go, because in the previous iterations of 1D&D, the Epic Boons just weren't up to snuff. Okay, we are on to spells. And I say the same thing on a lot of these spells. So Banishing Smite, this is a comment you're going to see on a number of these things. I like the mechanics of this spell. I like the new casting time. I don't like that this is now more of a cleric spell than a paladin spell. This should be a paladin feature. Blinding Smite, same thing. Find Familiar. I said, I like this a lot. I like that the Familiar doesn't have its own initiative score, but goes right after me. Cluttering initiative is not a good thing. I like that it uses a template. Because having to mine the monster manual is not a good thing. I like the removal of the pocket dimension. That was an abusable thing where you could use your action to have your familiar disappear, and then you could have it reappear anywhere within 30 feet, including on the other side of that impenetrable door, stuff like that. And I like that you can improve it by using a higher level spell slot. Find steed, I said. I don't know how this is supposed to work if one of my allies is riding the steed. Does it still share my initiative or theirs? Because the spell says it shares your initiative, but it's friendly to you and your allies. So if your ally jumps on the steed and controls it, does its initiative change like it normally would? Or should we use the text that says it goes on my initiative? It doesn't say, so that needs some clarification as far as I'm concerned. Then I said I like the template and the ability to upcast a spell. What I don't like is that clerics are way better at this than paladins. I don't think clerics should have this spell at all. Then on Glimmering Smite, I said I like the mechanics of this spell, though I think it is more powerful than the other smite spells, so that should be addressed. Otherwise, the same comments I put on all the smite spells. And then with Searing Smite, I said this one is too weak compared to the other smite spells. And on Spare the Dying, I said, I really don't like the idea of a cantrip being able to bring a dying ally back to consciousness an unlimited number of times. The yo-yo effect in D&D of PCs continually popping up from unconsciousness is already a problem, and this will make it worse, not better. Staggering Smite, same comments as the other smite spells. Thunderous Smite, same thing, and Wrathful Smite, same thing. Okay, so a couple comments I made on the rules glossary. So on the dying condition, as presented in this Unearthed Arcana, I said, I found the rules for this confusing. How does a healing kit work now? I don't know, like, does it give you a hit point now? I don't know. Why can't you use medicine to help someone who's making death saving throws? Do we need magical healing now to prevent a dying ally from actually dying? These are new questions that got added because of the changes they made to the dying condition. And then on telepathy, I said, I like telepathy being standardized rather than constantly having to check if this telepathy works with other languages or all those little tidbits that are different from one telepathy to the next. I just like the idea that telepathy works one way. Couple other highlights as to my comments here. On equipping weapons, the previous Unearthed Arcana specified that unequipping a weapon includes sheathing, stowing, or dropping it. This was removed from the current playtest. I said, this was good because we didn't know if dropping a weapon was the same as unequipping it. Abandoning that specificity is a step in the wrong direction. Then with Unarmed Strike, I said, I'm not a fan of the saving throw. The more I think about it, the less I like it. I have mixed feelings about applying it to an attack roll. I kind of actually just like the way it is in 5th edition with ability checks. So, yeah, I've got very mixed feelings on what they've done with pushing and grappling, but the saving throw, I just don't like it. It is just going to be there. How will you specialize in pushing or grappling anymore? You won't. So it just becomes, I think, less effective than it has been, which is another step in making melee a little bit worse. All right, and my final comments, and I pretty much used all the characters I was allowed to use. So I said, this playtest revealed a real danger to the concept of class identity. Paladin should be the class that uses smites, but with improvements to smite spells and providing clerics access, now the cleric is actually better at smiting than the paladin is. Same goes for the Find Steed spell. Previously a spell tied to the paladin's class identity, now clerics are better at this than paladins are. What I would like to see is for features that are tied to class identity, like smiting and a paladin mount, is for them to not be spells at all, but class features. Customizing smites is cool, if it is the paladin that can customize their smites. Then I said, the paladin, however, is too strong currently. Aura Protection is one of the most powerful features in the game, and given everything else the paladin is getting, it probably should be toned down. The Devotion Paladin is also the most powerful subclass of all the subclasses you've presented so far. Then I said, Wild Shape obviously needs work, and they obviously already know that because they talked about it in their last video. I like the idea of using templates, but they need to have options within them to customize what you can do other than just different movement speeds. Also, defensively, they are a problem because your armor class will go down when you wild shape, you lose the ability to protect yourself with spells, and these wild shape forms give you no defensive benefits at all. They need to give you something. I don't think a wild shape druid should be as good at combat as a fighter, but this goes too far. I like the idea of channel nature. I like that it is tied to class level. I am in favor of giving incentive to continue in a single class rather than multi-class, but there aren't enough options. The Druid seems to be completely built around Wild Shape, and Healing Blossoms as an option is okay at level 2, but Wild Shape keeps scaling and Healing Blossoms doesn't, until eventually you just do it automatically when you Wild Shape. I would like nature-themed options for Channel Nature that scale like Wild Shape does, so I can Wild Shape with my Druid, or do something else equally cool with my Channel Nature feature. Having a cantrip not only remove the dying condition, but the unconscious condition as well is a big miss for me. I am already not a fan of how in D&D a character can go up and down in combat like a yo-yo, but at least there's some limit. But with a cantrip being able to bring an ally back up, there's now no limit at all. And I finished up, I am fine with ranged smites, as long as melee gets some other incentive. Right now, there doesn't seem like much reason for classes to go into melee when range just seems better. Reducing a character's ability to push and grapple has only made this disparity worse. So that is my survey. I believe the survey should be open for quite a while, so I encourage all of you to go fill yours out and let them know what you think of the latest 1D&D playtest packet.